The rain hammered against the cracked windshield of my old sedan, each drop striking like tiny hammers against fragile glass. The wipers moved frantically, trying to sweep away the water, but the road ahead was little more than a blur of shadows and headlights, reflected on the wet asphalt. Alex, my 7-year-old son, huddled in the back seat, his small hands clutching his worn teddy, bear with a grip so tight I worried he might break the seams. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Mummy, why can't we stay with Uncle Jack?" I tightened my hands on the steering wheel, forcing a shaky smile I didn't feel. "It's just for a little while, sweetie. We'll find a new adventure," I said, my voice shaking under the weight of my rage. Jack, my twin, my brother, had thrown us out of the family estate, a sprawling Victorian mansion that had been ours for generations. He had claimed it as his own after our parents' mysterious car accident 2 years ago. I could still hear the sound of that night in my head, the screeching tires, the metal twisting and crunching, my father's last words swallowed by the rain. Jack's shortcut had been a shortcut to tragedy. Police claimed mechanical failure, but I knew better. When we arrived at the rundown motel on the outskirts of town, I felt every step of our descent into despair. The paint was peeling, the flickering neon sign offered little guidance, and the damp air smelled of mold and forgotten hopes. Alex sank onto the bed, burying his face into his teddy bear. I brushed damp strands of hair from his forehead, fighting back tears. "Mommy, will we ever go back?" he asked, voice small, trembling. I kissed his temple, holding back a sob. "Not yet, my love. Not yet." I pulled out the dusty folder I had salvaged from the mansion, filled with legal papers, letters, and my father Jason's will. My heart skipped when I reached page 17. "In the event of undue influence, coercion, or evidence of foul play in the demise of the testators, the estate shall revert wholly to the non-offending heir." Jack had overlooked it, blinded by arrogance. That clause was my weapon. Tonight, I was just a mother keeping her son safe. Tomorrow, I would become a force he never anticipated. The storm outside mirrored the one inside me, lightning illuminating fragments of my plan in jagged flashes. I whispered into the darkness, "This isn't just about the house. It's about justice." Alex fell asleep, oblivious to the storm raging in his mother's heart. I stayed awake, calculating, and letting the shadows of revenge creep closer with every tick of the clock. The mansion had once been a place of fleeting warmth and long-suppressed tension. After our parents' death, Jack had convinced me to sign over power of attorney, claiming he would protect the estate while I cared for Alex. I had trusted him, ignoring the small voice of caution that whispered warnings I did not heed. Then came the eviction notice. "You're a burden on this estate. Lisa, take your bastard child and leave," he had sneered. Alex heard it all. He did not cry. He merely shrank behind me, tiny shoulders trembling. That night, as I stared out the window of the empty mansion, I realized Jack had crossed a line from which he could never return. The betrayal burned deeper than grief itself. Finding a new home was nearly impossible. The motel's walls were paper thin. The floors creaked under each step. Roaches darted across the corners, and the arguments from neighboring rooms were like a constant, low hum of human misery. Every night, I lay awake listening to the storm outside, imagining a storm inside Jack's mind that he had no idea was coming. Whispers spread in the small town. Heard Jack kicked his sister out. Must be some family drama. I endured them, hiding the truth behind a mask of indifference. But beneath it, a seed of vengeance was beginning to grow. I began collecting evidence. The documents I had salvaged became my lifeline. Letters, emails, even casual notes that showed Jack's knowledge. of the will were scrutinized and catalogued. Every small detail became a brick in the fortress. I was building my fortress of justice. I also reached out to Marcus, a grizzled ex-cop with a scar across his cheek and a reputation for uncovering the darkest secrets. He dug into Jack's affairs, finding evidence of bribes, hidden accounts, and clandestine meetings. Every photo he sent me Jack meeting a shady mechanic, Jack laughing with his mistresses was a spark, feeling the inferno of my plans. I studied Jack, learned his routines, observed his weaknesses. His arrogance, once my torment, became my map. Every boast, every careless move, every loyal friend he had turned into potential allies for me. Late at night, after Alex slept, I pored over my father's will again and again. Page 17 glowed under the flickering motel lamp. My father had anticipated this. He had anticipated Jack. He wanted me to protect what is right, I whispered, touching the paper as if it were sacred. The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the window, thunder rolling across the hills. I knew one thing with certainty. The first move was coming, and Jack would not see it until it was too late. The days at the motel blended into nights, grey and endless. Alex remained fragile, a shadow of the bright, laughing boy he had once been. He refused to eat much, fearing the tasteless meals I could afford, and he asked questions I could barely answer. "Mommy, did Uncle Jack hate us?" he would whisper. I held him close, feeling his small body tremble with confusion and fear. I told him stories of distant adventures, of castles and hidden treasures, but in truth, my mind was already plotting a labyrinthine path that would lead Jack to ruin. I contacted Rebecca, my lawyer, every day, going over the documents and evidence. The clause in my father's will was unassailable, but we needed more than legality. We needed leverage, proof, and witnesses who could unmask Jack's treachery. Marcus delivered results faster than I expected. Photos, hidden accounts, secret meetings. Jack's double life was beginning to unravel, though he remained oblivious. I studied the images late into the night, memorizing patterns, mapping his vulnerabilities. One evening, a particular photo sent a chill down my spine. Jack at the garage where my parents' car had been tampered with, the same night of the crash. "This is it," I whispered to myself. "The spark that will ignite the fire." I also began to rebuild myself mentally and physically. Online law courses, forensics lectures, even psychology lessons. I absorbed everything. Every skill I could use to manipulate the pieces on the board. My father had given me the tools, the claws and the will, but now I had to wield them. The town began noticing subtle changes. Jack's allies hesitated, confused by rumors and anonymous tips I had planted about financial irregularities. One night, I walked through the rain-soaked streets, thinking of the mansion, its spires clawing at the sky, whispering secrets I had barely begun to uncover. I imagined walking through the hidden passages, doors long forgotten, where the echoes of my childhood whispered advice. Patience, cunning, timing. "He doesn't see it coming," I muttered. "And when he does, it will be too late." I reached out to Jack under a false pretense of reconciliation. I wanted him to underestimate me, to reveal cracks in his armor. I thought we could talk, maybe start over. I said over the phone, my voice soft, laced with faux vulnerability. He laughed, arrogant, unaware of the storm gathering just beneath my calm surface. "I don't see why I'd waste time on you, Lisa. You've already lost," he said, the smirk audible in his tone. I feigned submission but took careful mental notes of every pause, every slight flicker of annoyance. The first move was more psychological than legal, an intrusion into his mind, a planting of doubt. Meanwhile, Marcus worked tirelessly, uncovering old correspondence, bribes, and the faintest traces of possible sabotage. Emails hinted at Jack's access to the garage, receipts for brake fluid tampering, and even casual boasts to former lovers about controlling the inheritance. Each piece added weight to the case we were building. I also infiltrated Jack's social circle. Using a false identity online, I gained confidences. One of his mistresses, Lila, unknowingly revealed his prideful claims about fixing the inheritance. Another friend mentioned seeing Jack frequently near my parents' garage during suspicious hours. I filed motions quietly, under the radar. The clause gave me legal standing to demand re-examination of the estate, citing coercion and possible foul play. It was a delicate dance, each step precise. I had to push without revealing too much, to strike without exposing my own vulnerabilities. The psychological pressure mounted. Jack began hearing whispers, noticing strange patterns, subtle hints that his empire was not as safe as he believed. He laughed them off at first, but the seed of unease had been planted. The courthouse loomed large on the day of the hearing, an ancient building echoing with the footsteps of history. Jack entered with confidence, tailored suit and smug grin, expecting an easy victory. He had no idea of the storm about to descend. Rebecca began with the will clause, the foundation of the case. Every document, witness testimony, and photograph was presented meticulously. Marcus's findings, Lila's statements, and the forensic reanalysis created an irrefutable narrative. Jack's composure faltered under the pressure. His arrogance turned to confusion to panic. And by the end of the proceedings, he realized his world was crumbling. Evidence of the garage tampering, combined with the clause in my father's will, stripped him of both legitimacy and power. The verdict was merciless. The estate would revert to me, and Jack's reputation and wealth suffered irreversible damage. But my revenge did not stop at legality. I orchestrated subtle social, financial, and emotional blows, rumors, leaks, and exposures that ensured Jack could not recover easily. I returned to the mansion with Alex, reclaiming the halls once filled with laughter, now transformed into a sanctuary of justice and memory. We planted a garden where Jack's pool had been, letting flowers bloom over the shadows of the past. Alex thrived, his laughter returning like sunlight through clouds. Yet, I knew the truth. Revenge was a void, consuming, cold, but in that void, I had discovered strength and power. The storm had passed, but the lessons remained. Patience, strategy, and the shadows of justice are always watching. And should anyone ever threaten us again, we would rise not as victims, but as forces to be reckoned with.